everyone. I'm Erin Martin with Conscious Aging Solutions, where we are focused on all things conscious and holistic on how to age more successfully and live a happier, healthier life. Today, Marta Riggin is with me, and she is an incredible spiritual coach. She's a lot more than just that, and we'll talk about that. So glad to have you on the show, Marta. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Erin.
Yeah, of course. If you could just give us a little bit of who you are, what you do, and then we'll dive deep into it.
Okay. So I'm a registered nurse. I have a almost 35-year background in massage therapy. Right out of high school, I went into the military, and then I decided that massage therapy was a good fit for me. So I started as a massage therapist. So I do body work. I've had many years since then of additional classes. So specializing in things like myofascial work, trigger point therapy, some sports therapy work. But like you said, that's only part of what I do. It's a very small part of what I do. So even though that's my background is massage and body work, I've also been trained pretty extensively over 20 different modalities of healing touch work. So whether that's Reiki or polarity therapy or therapeutic touch or healing touch or quantum touch, I mean, I could go on and on and on. So those are, I would consider, the core of my work, the core of the work I do. And then as well, I've been trained in spiritual counseling. And so that evolves into some life coaching as well. It uses some regression work, sometimes some hypnotic work. Yeah, I do all kinds of things. I mix in some essential oils in there and some chakra clearing and some crystal work in there. It's a lot of bang for your buck.
So much. I mean, the holistic world has so much to offer. Mm-hmm. And you also have a kind of traditional medical background being a registered nurse.
Sure.
So how did all of that come together, and how does that all work together in what you do?
I started, like I said, as a massage therapist, and I really enjoyed that work, but probably about 20 years into that, I had also gotten my undergrad. I'd been working at my undergrad, and I knew that probably the longevity on my hands and my body were going to be an issue. And so I thought about other practices that I could be involved in, and of course nursing was a good fit. Originally, I had put my sights on physical therapy for a series of events that I don't need to talk about. I didn't end up there, but nursing was a good fit. My mom was a nurse, so I knew all of the stories about what it would involve to be a nurse. And I spent about 7 years in the nursing field. I have a background as a hospice nurse, so a lot of emphasis on pain relief and what that looks like in the traditional modalities with pharmaceuticals and things. But then I also did dialysis work, and I ran a skincare clinic for a while, worked for insurance for a while. So I tried several things as a nurse, and always my heart was just longing to go back to a practice where I was touching people, where I was more involved in their lifestyles, able to spend more time with them, able to do it in relaxing pretty, smelling good environments, which nursing definitely was not. Nursing was a very stressful path for me. So, but it has opened up so much as far as my knowledge base and education is concerned, because a lot of the people that I see that come in are, 50 to 70. I see younger people as well. Of course, you're not 50 to 70, but they have chronic pain issues. They have multiple diagnoses and pharmacology on board in spades. And a lot of times they would like to get off those medications, especially the pain relievers, especially the psychiatric pharmaceuticals, for depression and anxiety. And so So I'm able to help a lot of people that way as well because of my nursing background. So,
Right, absolutely. And I find that a lot of people who went through to traditional Western medicine, they go in and RNs end up being our clients a lot of the time because they see what doesn't work and they see this whole other world that's so isolated from traditional medicine.
Sure.
And it's so great that you can kind of speak from both sides.
Yeah, that has really been a blessing for me because I was always interested in everything medical and certainly in everything metaphysical. And I know you're going to ask me about my childhood and my background there.
Yeah.
But nursing just caused me to really focus on assimilating all that medical knowledge in a way that maybe anecdotally or through my mother or through any other of my learning I hadn't done before. And so, I had an anatomy base, basic understandings from my massage therapy background, but this just took it to a whole nother level.
Sure.
And especially when I started working with hospice, because again, the knowledge base that's accumulated there about the medications, and being a hospice nurse, you're very independent. The physician is often asking you, well, you're there, you know them.
Right.
What do you want to give them for medication? And so it was a very independent medical practice for me as well. And so coming from that background and then working with my clients now, it's been very helpful.
So incredible. Can you kind of walk us through what a normal client visit is for you? Kind of what do you take them through? What's your process? And when you're meeting a new client, and what all do you usually involve?
Sure. So my practice allows me a lot of freedom to do things the way that I want to, which is also one of the reasons why I got out of traditional medicine and back into, it's mostly a massage therapy platform that I work under, the bodywork platform. So first of all, people don't find me unless someone has referred them in to me. I don't have a sign out front that says, massage therapy here, because I don't want to draw just anyone to me. I'm looking for a certain clientele base that is really going to benefit from the work I do, is looking for the particular work that I do, and then that I will also enjoy working with, right? So not just anybody finds me, not just anybody walks in off the street. So that client base is somebody that's a little more mature, somebody that's on a spiritual path, somebody that does have an agenda as far as their own spiritual growth, as far as their own physical well-being. So initially they'll contact me because someone's referred them in, and maybe there'll be a little phone dialogue or a little texting direction about available times, what it is that they're looking for, how they found me. And when they come in, I tell them to expect about 90 minutes. Sometimes we run a little longer on an intake appointment. And I sit down with them and I just interview them. For me, that's better than having someone fill out a lot of paperwork ahead of time. Most people don't like to fill that paperwork out. And it gives me an opportunity to establish a rapport with them, to really listen and hear not only their medical history, their concerns about medications, things they're hoping to get out of the session with me, what's physically wrong with their body, where they're having pain or discomfort, what it is they're comfortable with me doing with them. Because some people come in and they really just want a massage.
Right.
It's never really just a massage, because I do all kinds of energy work and other things, counseling and such. But then there's a lot of people that never get on my table, which is also really interesting. So I need to find that out from them. I need to understand why it is they came in, what it is that they want addressed, and it gives me time during that interview as well to really tap into their energy. I know that's very woohoo, but people's body language, that's kind of
scientific,
routinely known, right?
Absolutely.
People's body language say a lot, so, but then I incorporate all my education and training as well. For instance, if someone comes in and they're sitting like this the whole time and, they have their hands crossed over there, this would be your heart chakra area. I'm going to be picking up those cues to see, where are they guarding, or if they've got their legs crossed, well, that's all root chakra and second chakra, so where do they feel insecure, unsafe, or, where do they need some more fun in their lives, which is the second chakra, so I'm really taking in a lot of information in that intake interview. And people tell me exactly where we need to go in the intake interview, which is what's so much fun. This happens anytime anyone comes in. Whatever they happen to be experiencing in their day that day is usually the topic of conversation. I just had an interesting argument with my mate, or, I just got a phone call from my daughter and I'm worried about these things. And usually what I find is whatever topics are hot on their brain is where we need to go within the session, and may also be echoing what I'm picking up with their body language, because if they come in with that, cross over their chest area and they're guarding their heart, and then they start talking to me about, the disagreement that they had with their mate, of course that measures right up. It's like, okay, so I can sense that you have blocked energy there at your heart chakra. So however we go after that, and that's part of the interview process, right? If they say they want body work, okay, well, let's get you on the table and let's start doing some physical addressing of those muscles, that fascia, those tissues, to see if we can't loosen you up. If they're more comfortable with verbal coaching from me, I might leave them in the chair and start also working on that heart chakra area by saying, where are you feeling the disturbed energy that's coming from this argument with your spouse, and when you feel that and sense that in your body, and they may very well say, my chest area here, right? What kinds of emotions are coming up around that? Does it have a physical shape or form or texture to it? Do you want to keep it? Is it serving you somehow? Yeah. So for those people that didn't come in for the body work, they might be in the chair the whole time. And then I'm teaching them a process that they will continue to use outside of me, so they're not just dependent on me, and how to move and shift that energy, how to change that substance or that vibration that's there at their heart center, causing probably physical issues, discomfort and pain, as well as just the emotional stuff that they're coming to me for. How do you shift that? What does that look like? So because I employ so many different modalities, a lot of modalities, I used tapping with someone the other day,
right.
Just tapping on the points. How does that make you feel? What do you want to move and shift? And I'll use, we were talking a little bit about maybe doing a meditation at the end. I use grounding techniques, Okay, you're feeling that in your chest center in your body. Let's send that down into your legs, down into the ground, moving that way. I may get out crystals and stones because, they have energetic properties that help to shift and move things. We know that from the use of magnets and other things too. So I may use essential oils, especially if I feel that about that. So that intake interview is probably the most important part about a first session with me, and then the session evolves as it goes. Sometimes people will come in with specifics. It doesn't happen very often. Sometimes somebody will say, well, I just want a straight Reiki session. I just came in for Reiki. Almost never happens. Most of the time people will say, you're the expert. I'm just going to trust you. Besides the fact that I want my shoulders and my feet rubbed, do what you think is going to be most beneficial for me.
Right. And that's what's so great about holistic health and also your practice is that there's so many different modalities and everybody is different. Where in the Western world, it's like they prescribe one drug for everyone, which doesn't necessarily work and scientifically doesn't work, which is why we're going to more individualized medicine. But that's what's so beautiful about your practice is that you're able to have freedom to see what works for people. And if Reiki doesn't strike your fancy or other modalities, you're like, I don't want anything to do with crystals. That's fine, because what's great about Marta and her practice is that you can see what works for you, and whatever you're really drawn to or you feel excited about, Marta's going to help you explore those modalities. And then you might even find stuff that you like that you didn't know that you liked. I know that all these sessions are individualized and you can kind of do those things. But I wonder if you find some patterns in certain challenges that people have. Like, what do you think people need the most of?
Well, for sure I find patterns. I mean, the two things that I brought up just right off the top of my head, the heart, guarding your heart.
Right.
And feeling secure in the world, feeling safe, feeling abundant. Those are two that come up classically and routinely. And like I said, a lot of times people will come in with the story. They have a storyline. Relationships, for sure, very challenging. What's the divorce rate? Over 75%?
Yeah.
Because people just have a hard time getting along. I think seeing things from someone else's perspective, which we could have a whole podcast just on that, right? Because there's been so much conflict, especially over the last 2 years, in our world based on that, politically, racially. And so, that topic, that being able to not only just see your own perspective and defend yourself. Here's why I'm right. Here's why I need this or that. Here's why I don't feel validated or I don't feel like I'm enough. Mm-hmm. Those topics come up all the time.
Yeah, not enough, feeling not enough. Like I find that at the root of everything, that's like where it is. And society is just bred environments where we're not taught that.
No. And, there's a lot of hot people on the scene, like Marissa Peer. She's kind of, do you know who she is?
Yeah.
She's kind of the counselor to the celebrities or whatever. She's got the new RTT. There's just so many metaphysicians and physicians out there now that are kind of moving in this direction, and information is more accessible than it's ever been.
Right.
But really, our needs are still the same.
Right.
The need for connection, we'll talk about that a little bit later on too, right? The
Yeah.
need for connection, but probably that biggest obstacle that nobody really gets is that they're just not seeing it from other people's perspectives.
Yeah.
And when you can do that, when you can get out of your own way, get out of your own head, then your own defenses go down. Then your need to justify or feel inadequate or feel insecure. A lot of that goes under the rug because then you're focused on somebody else and you're focused on how are they thinking and feeling and, that energy. So those kinds of dynamics, those relationship conflicts, of course we could talk about consistency and complaints with healthcare, which would be pain.
Right.
Depression.
But it's all connected emotionally,
it is,
right?
sure.
Spiritually, and it's not separate at all.
No. Depression and anxiety, super high on the charts.
Yeah.
Big
time. Just all connection, really just not feeling connected. And technology is a great tool, but it's definitely got in the way of really truly connecting with people. And it's been hard, like during COVID, the pandemic, people not being able to connect, and isolation is the real killer.
Yeah. And that's another great podcast.
Another podcast, right? We've got 5 or 6 under our belt happening. But I want to back up a little bit because I know that you have all these specializations and this incredible experience that we want to continue to share with people, and you mentoring more people, and you're going to share a little bit about how you're doing that. But I want to really touch on, how did you feel connected to this work at a very young age? What was your experience growing up, and what was kind of the light bulb moment or the turning point, or how did you feel and how did you recognize that maybe this was your path going forward?
Yeah, that's an exciting story. And I have a book. I think everybody has a book, in the back of my head on that I've tried to write or start to write several times. I don't know that my story is as dramatic as most. I don't have any near-death experiences or, traumatic injury experiences. But from very young, my mother was chronically ill and suicidally depressed off and on. And she had migraines pretty routinely. She was a nurse as well. I think she had a lot of gifting herself. She had an odd sense of knowing if people were going to die, and worked in the ICU a lot, So, but for me, she just started bringing me in very young, before 5, to put my hands on her head when she had migraines. And, as a child, I didn't think anything about that. I didn't really think much about it until I got older and started heavily into this work. But that was her ticket. She said that would really help. As I got older, that wasn't something she was asking me to do anymore, and I can remember having to take her to the hospital and get her a shot of Demerol for those migraines. And to me, that's just the worst, because if we're bringing our children up to tap into these healing gifts and abilities, and she had kept me in that stream and that flow, we wouldn't have been going to the hospital getting her a shot of Demerol, right? I would have just instinctively and intuitively still been putting my hands on her head. And if you think about things now, people do that naturally. If you have a headache, what do?
Yeah.
We instinctively put our hands on our heads, but we're not trained as children to foster and grow those kinds of giftings. We're taught that those things are woohoo or not scientific, or in my case, and you're wanting me to talk about my childhood, of the devil.
Yeah.
Which is
say more
topic.
about that.
Yeah, exactly. So that was kind of my early childhood experience. My mom was also an interesting lady. She raised me in Lutheran parochial school, so I did get a very stern Christian upbringing that I call my hellfire and brimstone upbringing, because there was very little spirit there. It was just all the rules, what you should do, what you shouldn't do. And of course, there's going to be a lot of conflict for a child, or even as an adult. I had this conflict, where do you balance that then? Because I wanted to be a good kid. And I also felt divinely connected to God, to Spirit, to Jesus. I loved them. And so I wanted to be in service that way. Mm-hmm. How can I serve? And to me, service was obey the rules, learn the Bible, serve, acts of service. It wasn't put your hands on somebody, because that wasn't being taught, Mm-hmm. And like I said, my mom was a little conflicted with the way she raised us, because at one point she did have a friend who taught me TM, Transcendental Meditation. So I can remember at 9, hanging upside down from my bunk bed, probably high on peppermint tea. I don't know if peppermint tea can get you high, but I drank a lot of tea and meditating, upside down. There I was, that's an odd thing for a 9-year-old to do. But I think that I was kind of an odd kid. I sort of fit in, but I mostly didn't. And a lot of times the topics that my brain was thinking on were not, the run through the tunnels and capture the boys and kiss them, that my other friends were thinking that they wanted to do at recess. So I spent some time alone, separated out from other people, other kids, and I was always interested in reading or learning about anything spiritual. And that progressed once I was out of Lutheran parochial school and graduated from high school. I joined the military, and that was my first big time away from home. And my interest had peaked in things that were metaphysical, so I picked up books like Celestine Prophecy and Conversations with God, and that was just kind of the beginning of the game changer for me. I progressed into Course in Miracles, and I'm like, wow, there's so much more here. And then I had an experience with the Charismatic Church where they were allowing you to, be prophetic, to really come into gifts of healing. They were proponents of that, things like speaking in tongues as well, and that was just completely foreign to me. I'd never been raised in any of that. And so I really got a diverse education on my own as a young adult after being raised so staunchly Lutheran was how I was raised. And when that started happening, then I was like, okay, well, maybe it's okay then. I started to learn who Jesus was as a healer, as an energy healer.
Yes.
And then it started to be more and more okay. And as it was more and more okay, then I spent some time in the Navy. That was a little adjunct. And once I got out of the military, I decided massage therapy was a good path for me. And so that opened a whole nother door, because I stayed at the massage school that I graduated from for 5 years, and we had all kinds of teachers come through, many of them metaphysics teachers. And we were also really close to the Edgar Cayce Foundation. I went to school in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and the school that I went to was, I don't know, maybe about 5 or 10 miles from the Edgar Cayce Foundation. So learning about him and, how he channeled, but that it was medical information and that it was correct. And so my very conservative, very not wanting to do anything that was out of the norm or not correct mind was being also heavily influenced by, I would call it the opposite side. So, the pendulum often swings both ways. So there was a long period of time that that was just my focus.
What would you tell people who maybe feel conflicted? They feel very connected with Jesus and spirituality and religion, but maybe feel a little bit different. What would you tell them if they're listening to this podcast?
I'm not trying to repeat myself, but another entire podcast, that would be an amazing podcast. And it might make me a little emotional, so I'm going to try to bite my lip so I don't tear up. But I really had a hard time. I had a kind of a dark night of the soul, if you will. I moved to Virginia to go to school full time. I thought I was called in the ministry, so I went to Victory Bible Institute. And I ended up doing medical missions as a nurse. overseas in Dominican Republic, Haiti, and Mozambique. So I was really sold out during that time. You know, I was giving my life to the Lord. I'd pretty much sold everything that I owned, and I moved here to Tulsa to do that. And that ended up not going so well for me, at least not the way that I thought it was going to go. I didn't feel very accepted there either, which was odd. You know, I thought I'd finally come to the place that I was going to really come into my own and be able to serve from that prophetic ability, charismatic healing ability, gifting, and it didn't go that way. That's a whole nother story. But for me, after I got past the depression of that, it shifted me into just being open to who Jesus was outside of just what the church was teaching. And I really needed that because I think I had actually been cultized. I was to the point where I wasn't watching anything but TBN. I wasn't listening to anything but Christian music. If I was reading, it was just the Bible. I had myself locked down really hard into that. And I'm still very knowledgeable. You know, I can quote scripture backwards and forwards because I've been raised on it. And I'm still so connected to that. But I needed that dark night of the soul to really break out and start exploring in other directions. And so anybody who's coming kind of out of that or who's kind of confused about how Christianity fits in or, you know, is alternative energy healing of the devil, it's not. I believe that's what Jesus was sent to teach. I believe that's why he was here. You know, when the spiritual leaders cornered him and said to him, you know, he wasn't part of the spiritual leadership community in the Jewish faith. And my belief is that he was actually gone for a while and came back with some different learnings and some different teachings. But you know, the Jewish leaders kept asking him, you know, you say you're the Son. If you're the Son, show us the Father. And he said, well, you don't understand. If you've seen me, you've seen the Father. And this is scripture. I'm not making this up. I and the Father are one. You know, and then he went on to teach, if these things that I'm doing, you will do also, or you can do also.
Right.
The spirit that's in me is in you as well.
Right.
And so I think a lot of times individual churches, Christianity on a whole, for religious purposes or control or for whatever reason, have taken a lot of that out of context, what he was trying to teach us. And, you know, that's what he demonstrated in his healings. That's what he demonstrated in what he considered important, you know, 40 days in the wilderness, fasting and praying. Why? To connect with God. He said he came to be the way shower, you know, the way shower. He didn't want a role of power. He didn't come to be king. He didn't come to be a rabbi. He didn't come to transform the church. He didn't come to start Christianity. He didn't start Christianity. There's a whole nother topic, right? You know, so who Jesus is as pure to me as it possibly could be now that I'm seeing it through eyes of someone that maybe would have been seated at his feet as he taught, not taught by the Christian church who, you know, the Bible wasn't written until 75 years to 125 years after his crucifixion and transformation, you know. So what is it that we're learning? You know, whose teachings are those really? The majority of the New Testament was written by Paul. All the letters to the churches were written by Paul. Paul was not even a disciple. You know, he had a conversion experience on the road to Damascus. What are you being taught? What is it that you really want to follow? You know, who is it that you're really venerating? And do you understand what his teaching really was? Because who Jesus really was, I think, has been lost in Christianity.
Right,
honestly.
and trusting your own inner knowing and this infinite wisdom that you have, that you can have that relationship, as they call it.
Right.
It is your own, and you know what's right for you ultimately.
Sure. And even that there's no separation.
Yes, that's what's so deceiving, is there's not a separation. Yeah, and there's not a separation between you and I, just like everyone else. And yes, absolutely, yes.
There is.
And I love you share that your love for Jesus and your connection with him, and he's obviously a huge influence in your life.
Sure.
And I know you have some other influencers that you really like their work. And I think if you'd share just a couple of those with us and so that people can also kind of dive into that if they want to.
Yeah. Well, I had a path, just like everyone who pursues a spiritual journey does. I loved Course in Miracles. I brought that up. I brought up Conversations with God, Neil Donald Walsh, transformative for me. I know it's controversial, but I'll say her anyways, Abraham Hicks. Whether she claims to channel or what she's actually doing, she's an amazing teacher with a lot of core fundamentals that help me heal my relationship with God. And then Dr. Joe Dispenza, who just, I just love. How could you not love him? And he's such a hot topic right now. He has been pretty much since What the Bleep We Know, which is, I think, 20 years ago. But the metaphysical topics that he teaches on are very core in my practice. I use them to help heal the people that come to see me, and I also teach his principles, encourage other people to pick up his books. Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself is amazing. So those are the primary people. I would say I also really like Dr. Chinny Lin, who is a Qigong professor at Spring Forest Qigong. I love the teachings of Barbara Brennan, Hands of Light, so.
Lots of great resources out there. So check them out. And I want to go into what are you doing now and how do you see the future of holistic healthcare as we move forward, as we really need more of it? What are you doing now and what are you doing right here in Tulsa to kind of further that mission?
Sure. Well, COVID was a little hiccup for all of us. It had some good things too, though, because it sure pushed people out of their comfort zone, right? I call that the big wake-up call, What's the best way to get out of going into a full-time job that you don't want to, that maybe you could work from home, right? You call in sick. Well, the world kind of called in sick for a bit, didn't we? Right. So, but before COVID, I had started working on some things at my own interest and then kind of the demand of my clients as well. I've taught some, mostly on meditation, law of attraction, energy healing types of modalities. I've mentored a bit. And I would like to do more of that. I would also like to do some retreat work. So I've really been looking into that. Just came back from Hawaii in March, and that was a fabulous trip. Just been checking out some places that would be fun to go and to take people, what other people are doing. Back in December of 2021, I did actually go see, 2020. I did go see Dr. Joe Dispenza in Cancun, so just diving into other people's retreat work and continuing education. I love that. Those are all important things for me. The part of my clientele that's been excited about me teaching or about me doing retreat work or about me starting small groups of some kinds has been excited about the start of an alternative practitioners group. So I'll put a pin in that for a minute. There's also a women coming together from a heart-centered connection type group that's forming, and I think we'll start that in the fall. And both of those groups, the Alternative Practitioners Group and the Women's Group, are hosted right now by the Be Love Yoga Studio. I'll give a shout out to Miranda Morales in Broken Arrow. It's on Main Street. It's a wonderful new studio. They've been open about a year. And she's hosting. So we probably will host at other places as well, but the idea is to come together as community, and whether that's alternative care practitioners, which I think there's a huge need. Part of the people that have reached out to me have been people that are acupuncturists, yoga teachers, other massage therapists, or other body workers, marriage and family therapy counselors, hypnotherapists, people like this that are kind of off solo, alone in their practice and feeling lonely for sure. Also maybe not feeling very supported, and wanting other practitioners to work with, to consult with, to refer to. Who doesn't have the story as an alternative care practitioner of wanting to start the wellness center?
Totally.
Heard it 50 times, and every time they're so excited, I'm going to start a wellness center. Well, everybody's going to start a wellness center, but what we really need is a community.
Absolutely.
Because it's hard enough to start your own practice and get that up and going. But I've seen wellness centers come and go. You know, they tried it, and the cash flow just wasn't there to keep it up. But when those alternative practitioners can come together outside of a practice even and be supportive to each other, the group that has met twice now of alternative care practitioners that I'm hosting at the Be Love Studio, we do a little intro, we do a little talking about what are you daydreaming about? You know, for me, that's the retreat work and these groups and facilitating these groups. And then where are you stuck, right? And you asked me that in the beginning. What do people come in stuck with?
Sure.
You know, what are their stuck areas? Where are they not moving forward? And then, you know, we listen very intently, and then we do some meditation at the end, which hopefully we'll have time to do today. But that intentional time of focusing on somebody else, we talked a little bit in the beginning about perspective. It gives you a chance to share your perspective, but then it makes you sit back and listen to what's happening with other people. And
so
then,
helpful.
Yes. And then in the style of Lynn McTaggart, who is also a teacher that I love. She's written books like Power of Eight. She creates intention groups that meditate together. At the end of our session time with these groups, they're usually about 2 hours long, we do a group meditation that's 20 or 30 minutes where we are focusing on each other with loving, you know, encouraging energy to help us perpetuate our dreams, and then also to get past whatever it is that's blocking us or stopping us up, right? So good stuff, and will be a good format for the women's group that's going to start meeting as well. So
very exciting stuff. So awesome. And I know just personally, meditation has revolutionized my life and as well as breath work. And it's really important. So I'm excited. I think we should do a little practice and show everyone before we wrap up. So if you'd like to lead us, let's do it.
Yeah. So this is an easy practice that you can do no matter what's going on with you. So if you want to just sit back in your chair and close your eyes, it's a grounding practice, right? So you're going to think about grounding. And what does grounding mean to you? And I'll give the little disclaimer, don't do this while you're driving or operating heavy machinery, right? So breathe in slowly through your nose and out your nose. The nose was meant for breathing, mouths were meant for eating. So in through your nose, out through your nose. Focused on the breath at your stomach, expanding your belly. We were meant to belly breathe. Babies belly breathe. So then think about your body like a tree. Your midsection being the trunk of the tree, your arms being your limbs, your head being the top of the tree. And then let's focus on your pelvis and your legs. And in this, we're going to address the energy centers of the chakra system a little bit, for those of you familiar with that. So think about your pelvis as kind of the base of the tree, and your legs and your feet as the beginnings of roots that are going down into the earth. And let's start at that pelvic floor. So your rectal area, your perineum. Think about that area. Bring in some red in your mind's eye, the color red. And then become aware of your legs and your feet as the roots of the tree. And let's see if we can't send those down into the ground. Mother Earth, down into Mother Earth. She's an energetic source for us that we don't consider very often. And she's consistent. She's consistent. She's always supplying the air that we breathe, the food that we eat, the water we drink. So she's trustworthy. She's very stable. She's very large. She's very earthy, mineralistic, elemental, fundamental. Put your roots down into her. Down into the soil, down into the earth. See if you can't connect to something in there that just feels very stable and good to you. And bring that energy up your legs, into your pelvis, clearing as it goes, anything that's not serving you. Any energy blockages, places of pain or discomfort, think about that energy as it comes in, however it feels best to you. A cool stream, warm air, whatever helps to loosen those blockages and encourage the energy flow as it moves up your spine, into your lower abdomen, around to your lower back, setting things free, under your ribs, around through your internal organs, into your solar plexus. Now up your back, between your shoulder blades, into your chest. Let that energy expand through your heart center. What have you been guarding there? What could you let go of? Let it go through your breath as you think of that energy move up into your shoulders, down your arms, out your palms. Open your palms up. There's little energy centers there at your palms. What have you been holding on to too tightly? Let that go. Then let that energy move up into your throat, to the back of your neck. Where have you not been speaking your truth? Can you let that go? Letting the energy come up into the base of your skull, into your jaw. Loosen those jaw muscles, behind your nose, up behind your eyes, into your temples. Let that energy move around through your skull, into your brain, into that third eye center, between your eyes at the center of your head. See if there's anything dark or anything that's been blocking you up there. Let it go out the top of your head. Like someone took the lid off a box or the lid off a can. And now let that energy move up and out of you, down around all sides of you, like you're a geyser or a fountain, pulling up that energy from the earth, allowing it to clear everything along your spinal column and through your body. And up and out the top of your head, down around all sides of you, spilling down around all sides like a fountain, clearing that energetic field on the outside of your body. Are you still observing your breath? In through your nose, out through your nose, letting things go. Then see if you can't be grateful to Mother Earth for her consistency, for her energetic support. Gratitude is the highest vibration that you can choose to feel. I'm so grateful. What are you grateful for? And then bring your consciousness back in behind your eyes. Imagine that someone set a pair of glasses on your face and open your eyes and come back into your room. Clear and focused and grounded.
Beautiful. I feel so relaxed. It's amazing where you hold tension that you don't realize, like behind your eyes or under your ribs. And I know in my jaw, I do a lot. Shoulders, which is very common. That was a beautiful, beautiful practice. And thank you so much for sharing about your upbringing, your journey to doing all the beautiful work that you share with so many people. You are helping and have helped so many people, including me. And thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Where can people connect with you if they're interested in working with you?
I will give you that. I want you to share just for a minute what you think this work has done for you.
Oh, sure. Okay. Man, so many things, Marta. The coaching has really helped me understand a lot of my thinking. I love that you always say that you are a God self being and you can choose the emotions that you're having, what's helped me is that understanding that when you're having these lower level emotions that they're trying to feed, like they're really negative emotions. And so we're giving too much to them and allowing them to kind of take over. And that at any time you can say, no, I am the ruler of this universe right here, and I'm going to choose to do something better. That's been a beautiful thing, and also helping me. I am someone who is super ambitious, and I love to drive fast, listen to loud music, but understanding how to calm and how, like, when I'm calmer and when I am in the flow and the ease of things, that things are much more productive and a much less drama. And it just makes for a much happier life. So I could go on, but those are a few things that has really helped me.
Body work. Have you liked any of the body work?
Oh, I love the body work. I love the body work. And what's great is that I'm used to like really aggressive massages because like you got to get in there and do all this. But actually I have found that with Marta that she can be aggressive and do what she needs to do. But what I love is that she has found these ways and these modalities to actually be gentler but cause a bigger change. And I think that is a really beautiful thing that you've helped me with too.
Yeah. What do you think? Now I'm interviewing you. What do you think is the biggest thing that's impacted you as far as what's happened in your life since you started with that work with me, with the coaching work especially?
Yeah, with the coaching work, actually with my career, I have been able to, there's people that are asking me to do all sorts of things all the time. And sometimes people offer me a lot of money. And that's really, really tempting.
Yes.
Because we all got to pay our bills. But Marta has really helped me center on what it is that really matters and to stay really focused. And because I've been coached in that way, I've actually ended up being more productive and raising more money and helping more people and having a lot more success because of that.
How do you feel it's impacted your relationships?
Hugely changed my patterns so much in dating, really harnessing what it is that I'm really looking for. And I actually met someone really special not too long ago.
I'm so excited.
I had been in a circular pattern for a long time in toxic relationships. That's a whole other podcast actually out on YouTube. And it has been an absolute joy to be able to understand what healthy looks like and what it feels like, and to know that I'm worthy of having it. And that's really transformed my personal relationships as well.
Yeah, and you are, and I'm so excited for you for that. I think that's that's the most rewarding part about doing this work, is watching people's lives genuinely transform.
Right.
And that doesn't always happen with traditional medicine. Right?
No, it doesn't. And they don't take the time to really know.
No.
So what's your website? How can
Sure.
people get a hold of you? And
So it's my name, www.martarigginhealing.com. No S on Riggin, Riggin. I do hands-on work in my office. I have an office at 51st and Harvard in Tulsa, but I also work remotely with people. I'll do FaceTime calls or just regular phone calls.
absolutely. So anyone can access you from anywhere. Again, Marta Riggin, MartaRiggin.com. You can get a hold of Marta that way or through her phone number. You can always reach out to me and our team at consciousagingsolutions.com if you want more information and other resources in your community and above and beyond that. So thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much, Marta, for being on the show.
Erin, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks.